Welcome to a deep dive that lands right at this, well, fascinating intersection of science, spirituality, and,
Yeah.
yeah, even sensuality.
It really is quite a mix, isn't it? Not something you bump into every day. But our source material today suggests sound might just be the key connector here.
Absolutely. Our source is an article from TATANKA.site, and it focuses on a very specific product, actually. It's called Sacred Currents, the Tantric soundscape that awakens body, soul, in union.
Quite a title.
Yeah.
And our mission really for this deep dive is to properly get to grips with what this thing is. You know how the article says it's designed to work?
Right.
This blend of binaural beats, ambient music, and tantric ideas. And what the source claims are the intended effects, not just for couples, interestingly, but maybe for individuals, too. We want to pull out those core insights.
Yeah, the surprising bits, too. So get ready to explore this idea that sound isn't just background, that it might be something actively influencing your state of being, your connections, maybe even your healing.
Okay, so let's unpack Sacred Currents. The article introduces it as a specific tool. What is it, fundamentally?
Well, the source describes it as a pretty substantial 6-hour AI-generated soundscape.
6 hours. Wow.
Yeah, that length alone tells you it's really meant for deep immersion, right?
Definitely. And its primary purpose, as stated in the article.
It's quite focused,
Yeah.
designed specifically to enhance tantric practice and what they call conscious intimacy.
Okay, so aimed at that specific area.
Right. But the article really emphasizes it's not supposed to be just passive background music. It's designed to be like an active participant, almost a guide in the experience.
Which shifts things, doesn't it? From just listening to something to actively engaging with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does the source claim this actually works? It gets into some, well, pretty interesting science, especially binaural beats. How do they fit in?
Right, binaural beats seem to be a core pillar. The basic idea is you play two slightly different pure tones, one in each ear, through headphones usually, and your brain, trying to make sense of these two frequencies, actually perceives a third rhythmic pulse, the beat. But that beat isn't actually in the sound waves themselves, it's the difference frequency between the two tones.
So your brain is literally creating that third beat internally.
Precisely. And the article presents this as a, quote, scientifically supported method for altering brainwave activity. The theory is the brain tends to synchronize with this perceived beat frequency. It's called neuroacoustic entrainment.
And Sacred Currents supposedly uses these beats to nudge the brain towards certain states.
That's the idea. It seems to target a couple of key brainwave states, according to the source, and links them to specific feelings or experiences. First up are theta waves, usually around 4 to 8 hertz.
Okay.
The article connects these with deep relaxation, accessing intuition, a sort of dreamlike receptive awareness.
Sounds like a way to quiet the usual mental traffic jam.
Exactly. Then you have alpha waves, 8 to 12 hertz. The source suggests these encourage a calm meditative state. Good for creativity, emotional connection, that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
And they also mention delta waves, which are slower, 0.5 to 4 hertz, linking them to deep rest, healing, and even a sense of merging, physical and spiritual awareness.
Now, the article uses this really interesting phrase when talking about couples using it. The neurophysiological bridge. What's that getting at?
Yeah, that term describes the intended effect on partners listening together. The idea, as presented, is that by potentially synchronizing the brainwave activity of both people, the binaural beats might create a kind of bridge between their minds, an energetic connection that goes beyond just being in the same room, opening up a channel almost for shared experience.
Wow, that's a big concept. Sound creating a shared mental space.
It's the aspiration, definitely. The source suggests that inducing these states, like theta and alpha, helps dissolve that constant mental chatter,
Right.
allows access to the subconscious, makes it easier for emotions to surface, and crucially can help regulate the nervous system.
Which is so important for reducing anxiety, defensive feelings.
Exactly. Key for connection.
So, okay, you've got this subtle, science-based layer working on the brain waves. But a 6-hour soundscape isn't just pure tones, right? There's actual music layered over it. What did the article say about that?
Yeah, this is where the artistry comes in, crafting the emotional landscape. The article mentions specific instruments chosen for their effect. Things like warm strings, electric piano, gentle guitar echoes.
And each one has a kind of job to do, according to the source.
That seems to be the intention. The warm strings, for example, are described as rising like an inner fire, meant to evoke comfort, safety, that feeling of being held emotionally.
I can imagine that. Strings can be very enveloping.
And the electric piano. It's described as flowing with liquid grace, mirroring breath and movement smooth, unhurried, creating this sense of timelessness.
Like a steady current grounding you.
Yeah, exactly. And the gentle guitar echoes are apparently designed to linger, inviting stillness, deep presence, like the silence between heartbeats is how they put it.
That's imagery.
The article really stresses this isn't just random sounds. It's a deliberately woven sonic palette designed to support, slow, conscious connection.
Okay, let's bring in that third key element the article talks about, Tantra. How does the source define Tantra here? Because it can mean different things to different people.
True. They define it as an ancient spiritual system focused on the expansion of consciousness through embodied experience. They characterize it as a sacred dance of energies, even a kind of meditation in motion.
And the core goal they emphasize seems quite different from, say, a typical view of sex or intimacy.
That's a really crucial distinction the article makes. It explicitly states the goal in Tantra is not release, but expansion of awareness, sensation, and love.
Expansion, not just climax.
Right. They even quote Osho, framing Tantra as the science of transforming ordinary lovers into soulmates. It's about deepening the connection, the presence, not just achieving a physical peak.
Okay, so how does Sacred Currents, this soundscape, supposedly support that specific tantric approach?
Well, the article suggests several ways. First, it's designed to help you really anchor in the present moment, encouraging that conscious slowing down.
Okay.
It aims to amplify your awareness of subtle things, your breath, the feeling of touch, the flow of energy within you.
Which are fundamental in many tantric practices, right?
Absolutely. It's also linked in the article to encouraging energy circulation. They mention prana or kundalini and supporting chakra activation. And crucially, perhaps, by calming the nervous system through that mix of binaural beats and the ambient music, it's intended to help support sustained pleasure, even non-ejaculatory orgasmic states, prolonging the experience.
Moving beyond just a single point of release towards something more expansive, like you said.
Exactly. The atmosphere it aims to create is also meant to invite emotional openness, vulnerability. And the structure, the rhythm, provides a kind of shared rhythmic space where minds and hearts can sync up more easily.
So given this is a 6-hour immersive experience, what are the kinds of outcomes the article suggests users might experience if they really engage with it?
Well, the source points to several potential results. Things like achieving profound energetic and emotional alignment, both within yourself and with a partner.
Okay.
Developing the ability to sustain and expand pleasure without that typical feeling of urgency or needing to rush.
And the article actually mentions different kinds of orgasms.
It does, yeah. It talks about the potential for multidimensional orgasms, describing them as experiences involving the whole body, mind, spirit, not just localized.
Interesting.
It's also presented as enhancing relaxation, promoting healing, and fostering a deeper spiritual connection within the union or relationship.
Creating a particular kind of atmosphere seems really central here.
Definitely. The article talks about creating a sacred space where time kind of softens, where personal boundaries might dissolve a bit, allowing love to flow more freely.
The article also takes a step back, doesn't it, to talk about the power of sound more broadly, beyond just this one soundscape.
It does. It positions sound generally as a kind of bridge between worlds, connecting the material and the spiritual, or your inner self and the outer world.
I like that image. Sound is a bridge.
And in the context of intimacy, specifically, they describe sound acting almost like a third presence in the room, a neutral energy that holds space, supporting the journey of connection and growth between partners.
And they connect this back to neuroscience again.
Yep. They bring it back, pointing out that, modern neuroscience confirms music affects mood, memory, emotional tone. So the deliberate choices in Sacred Currents, the specific tones, the composition, are aimed squarely at evoking warmth, stillness, expansion, helping those emotional defenses relax, allowing for maybe deeper expression.
And they even suggest sound might unlock things words can't reach, like unspoken truths, or maybe even helping release trauma held in the body.
That's a powerful idea raised in the text, yeah. And on a spiritual level, sound is viewed as a vibration that can help realign the individual soul and the partnership, creating a spiritual intimacy that, quote, transcends words.
Wow.
They use these really evocative phrases like sound as sacred architecture, describing it as a kind of ritual without religion.
Speaking of connection beyond words, there's a story included in the source material that's, well, it's deeply moving, about a woman named Nayeli. It seems to show the soundscape's potential impact way beyond its main advertised use.
Oh, this story is incredibly striking. Nayeli is introduced living in a shelter. She's using headphones, but not to listen to music, more like armor. She's described as silenced, frozen by trauma, hadn't really engaged with music for years.
Headphones is a barrier, not a connection. That's heavy.
It is, and she apparently discovers sacred currents through another volunteer, 𝗧𝗔𝗓. 𝗧𝗔𝗓 just hands her this folded piece of paper with links to TATANKA.site, and the note just says, "For people like us, this one doesn't talk back."
Simple but powerful.
Yeah.
What happened when she finally listened?
The article describes it beautifully. It says the music didn't just start, it unfolded. She felt this warmth bloom in her chest, like a memory of being held unconditionally. A specific string sound felt like it was gently aligning her spine. Her body, which had been so locked down, started to respond. Her hands softened, her jaw unlocked. She found herself breathing deep into her belly, apparently for the first time in years.
A real physical and emotional thawing, just through the sound.
That's the picture painted, yeah. The article says by the third hour, she was crying, but it wasn't distressed crying. They describe it as not crying. Like her body was remembering rhythms, feeling movement again. She wasn't frozen anymore.
Incredible. And what was her big takeaway, her realization from it?
She felt like the sound was literally tuning her gently, precisely back into herself. She saw those concepts from the article, sound as sacred architecture, ritual without religion, as exactly what she needed. A sanctuary you could carry with you, just needing your own presence.
So she used something explicitly made for couples' intimacy, for profound personal healing, reconnecting with her own body after trauma.
That's the powerful twist. And apparently it didn't just stop with her. Other women in the shelter noticed the change in her, were drawn to the sound somehow, and this led to the formation of the Sound Body Collective.
What's that?
A kind of mobile sanctuary Nayeli helped create. All it needed was headphones, a mat, this soundscape, and the shared belief that healing doesn't always have to speak in words.
That just illustrates the potential impact so vividly beyond the target audience. What does the source say is the main takeaway from Nayeli's experience?
The article really emphasizes her story shows how sound can be reclamation, how it can potentially bypass the language of trauma and speak directly to the deeper body. It highlights the soundscape's impact beyond luxury or lifestyle, becoming for some almost a lifeline, especially for marginalized individuals.
Okay, let's try and bring these threads together then. We've got the binaural beat science, the tantric principles as the source describes them, the musical soundscape itself, and this really powerful story of Nayeli.
Yeah, the article sums it up by framing sacred currents as this convergence point, science, spirit, sensuality, all meeting. They call it both a mirror reflecting your inner state back to you and a map guiding you deeper.
A tool for self-discovery and connection then.
Seems so. And they touch on this idea that within this space, the experience isn't so much about chasing pleasure, but where pleasure is not pursued, it is revealed.
And they even bring up 𝗓𝗕, the little death, but suggests the experience here is more about that broader expansion and revelation, not just that fleeting peak and release.
That's right. Framing it all as an invitation, really. An invitation to step into resonance, to discover love and connection, maybe on a vibrational level.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now?
Well, this deep dive into the sacred currents source material, it really shows us a fascinating attempt, doesn't it? Trying to integrate specific sound technologies and deliberate artistic composition to influence our inner state, our connections, maybe even help with healing.
Yeah, that blend of what the article presents as science, the binaural beats with the spiritual principles of Tantra focusing on that embodied expansion, plus the known emotional power of music, creates this really multi-layered experience designed, first and foremost, for profound intimacy between partners.
But what's genuinely insightful, I think, and really driven home by Nayeli's story, is how a tool made for that specific context could also become this powerful vehicle for individual healing, for self-reclamation, speaking to the body and soul in ways that maybe words or traditional therapy sometimes can't quite reach.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, maybe it raises an important question for you to think about. Given this potential for sound, as suggested here, to influence brain waves, evoke deep emotions, maybe even bypass trauma responses, what other ways could you intentionally use sound in your own life?
Yeah, think about the sounds you choose, or the sounds you just find yourself surrounded by daily. How might they be subtly shaping your inner landscape, your mood, your sense of presence? And knowing the kind of potential described in this source, how could you perhaps more intentionally curate the sound for your own well-being, your emotional state, or for connection, whether that's with someone else or just connecting more deeply with yourself?
Something to consider. Keep diving deep into the world around you.